Okay, everybody, hello. It is December 15th. We're doing another lunch and learn with our Remax, and we've got a superstar from Remax of Gladstone. It's the name of the company Gladstone, or is it? That's not right.
Remax Revolution.
Remax Revolution, but you live in Gladstone, or the office is in Gladstone.
Yes, the office is in Gladstone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kristi Soligo, who's been, oh my, we've known each other long time.
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years, that's right. But she was with another one of those companies, but recently she has kind of made the switch to Remax. And so not only is she a great top agent, but she's also got some good tips and experience of moving with Remax. So that's kind of a good thing to do. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Elizabeth. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you. So our goal today is just to kind of, share your amazing expertise with agents. We've got some new people. We'll have, some people who've been in the business for a long time, but just really share a little bit into the workings of your business that might help someone else. So tell us a bit about yourself and your history in the business.
So I've been in the business 23 years. I always feel old when I say that. Like many of us, it wasn't my first choice. It's second, third career, whatever that is. And Elizabeth is right. I spent the last 20 years at another brand. So actually, Remax is my third brand in 23 years. And I wish I would have understood how much is there for you as an agent, collateral wise and marketing wise, because, oh, wow, wow. So I'm married. We have 2 kids. Our son graduated during COVID. Our daughter is in 8th grade, and I work real estate full time. I'm an athlete. Little known fact, Elizabeth and I did a mini women's triathlon together. That was a blast. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's get right to it with, the number one question is prospecting, whether you want to call it prospecting, lead gen, whatever it is you want to say, what is your kind of best tip or resource of what you do to grow your business? Because one of the things for sure that I think I've witnessed, or at least I feel like I've witnessed, is your business continues to grow.
Yes. So when I wrote down the best source for prospecting, in my small team, of course, I'm the team leader, but my sole job is to list homes. I have 2 buyer specialists and an admin, but my job every day is to hunt for listings. So that's what I do. So my best source of prospecting is our listings, because that's an easy advertising as your for sale sign. So doing just listed calls, just listed postcards, just sold once the property's sold. And then I know we'll get into this a little bit more, but in my contact management program, which is Top Producer, we have we have literally hundreds of contact types. So I'll go pull certain contact types, utilizing the Remax website to do some upper bracket postcards. Back in 2014, I had started prospecting expired. I learned how to do that and started prospecting for sale by owners. Well, as we know now, if you have an expired, there's a really big reason why you're an expired. So I choose not to do those. But really, that's the best source of prospecting, I think, is just knowing that we have to be in front of people, whether that's physically, which is a little bit hard now with COVID, or just being on the phone, because really sales in general is a numbers game.
So you said something that I don't know that I've always heard anybody say. You said just listed phone calls. What does that look like for you?
So in our MLS system here in Kansas City, we have a status called future status, which is that pre-MLS or the coming soon status. So once I have an exclusive right to sell agreement signed, I'm allowed to start marketing that property. So we have it in coming soon status. All the while I'm getting the stager over there, they're getting the photographer over there. So calling around the neighborhood and letting them know, they probably just saw our sign, but let's be fair. If you live 2 blocks away, you may never leave the subdivision. So letting everybody around that new listing knowing that it's coming live, and if they have an opportunity to want to see it, and do they have friends? So yeah, so we have a whole system for that.
So you personally make calls?
Oh yes.
And how many do you get surrounding it?
So my goal is to call 20 to 30 around it. And I keep track of how many contacts I make and how many calls it takes to get a contact, and that just depends on who you're calling. I'm kind of a numbers nerd, if you will. So I'd like to say 20 to 30 people is who I'll call. And then when it's nicer, I'd like to go door knock. But again, this year has been, you know, our board does not want us door knocking, which I totally get and I totally respect.
I get it. It's killing me because you're like, yeah, of course I call, but I don't think most agents are doing that, right?
Yeah.
And so when you do just listed, just sold, do you do that through a system that, or have you got that automated?
So yes. So the answer to that is I actually have two systems. So in our contact management software, which is Top Producer, I've used that since 1999. It's probably archaic, but I'm too old to change. So in Top Producer, every single person that I have closed a house with, or an adopted buyer, or center of influence, not only do I have their name, address, you know, other contact information, but I also have which subdivision they live in. So I feel like when I go into Top Producer, that's a warm call. So I start with my warm calls first. So I physically dial those people and I make notes in Top Producer. And then once I've hit all those people, then I go into a dialer system and I call in the dialer system.
So with your, what's your dialer system?
Mojo.
Mojo. Okay. Mojo. Keep that in mind, everybody. So then with your just listed and just sold postcards though, is that part of a system? Is it MLS mailings or what are you using for that?
So the just listed, just sold postcards, I'll be honest, we're not consistent with that, but that's part of what we're putting into place for 2021. It's just, we might go into Top Producer and send it to those people that already know us, love us, trust us, but I try to keep this, whomever we're cold calling, that it's the same people. So not only do they see us, but they're also hearing from us. So it would be the same 20 to 30 people.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's a huge thing. Any other prospecting tips you've got for anyone?
Any other prospecting tips? First and foremost, it's the first thing that's scheduled in my calendar every year, every week. It's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Okay. So 15 hours a week. This is something that I let, when I'm on a listing presentation, that I let the seller know that I spend that time looking for buyers to purchase their property. And it also helps me because if I don't do it first thing, I'll have every intention of doing it later in the day. And then, you know, life gets in the way and it doesn't get done, but I do time block that.
And that's the time to do that.
Yes.
So we have a question more about Mojo. Mojo, yeah.
Yes, Mojo dialing system.
Yeah, what's that doing for you?
So like we just talked about, we do the just listed, just solds.
Does it also have addresses in it too?
Yes, it does. I think, and my assistant would know this way more than I think it's connected with maybe Kohl's directory, but you can go in and you can do a radius. Okay, I want to call all these people, and then it'll download it for you. The other thing that I also pay for in Mojo is expireds. I really shouldn't be paying for that now because we don't have expireds. But it would let you know, you select which zip codes or zip codes or counties, I don't remember. And it'll let you know which ones expired the night before at midnight. Okay, cool. And the for sale by owners.
So one of the things I was dying to ask you is, I feel like just over, I don't know if it's been the past couple of years or just anything, your Instagram presence has like gone through the roof. And I love tracking you because you're always tracking like, I sold 1 listing, I sold 2 listings, I sold 3. And I love it. Like I'm always following it. So when did you start that? Why did you start that? Do you feel like it's beneficial and who does it?
Because it's not me doing it. Yeah. That's why it's so consistent. So I hired a young lady. She's my stager actually. And her mom used to be a buyer specialist for me. And Lindsay did her social media for her sorority when she was at college. So I said, hey, you're really good at staging. Your mom said you do some social media. So that's what she does our social media. And if I personally post something on Instagram, I don't have a huge following. Let me back up. Yeah, well, I don't have a huge following, but a lot of my clients aren't on Instagram like they are on Facebook. So I feel like on Instagram, I can put some really silly stuff, you know, like, and then I'm not, I don't know, but yeah, but it's fun. It's really fun.
It's an alternative spot for that. Okay, the big question everybody always wants to know is, do you pay for leads?
No.
Have you ever?
I have. So I was thinking about that question. So I put, do I pay for leads? Well, back in the day, I think it was in 2006. Was Realtor.com around in 2006? Yeah. So I did. I remember paying for a zip code and paying for leads. And long story short, I had back in 2006, a $600,000 house here was like really, really expensive, super upper bracket. And I ended up getting a really great lead off of that property. They didn't buy that house, but to this day, that same lead, I think, has sold 5 properties with me. Wow. Fun fact, she was from Liberty, Missouri, where I'm out of. He was one of the first people to work at AOL. And it was this young 30-something couple that ended up buying $1 million property from me. And I remember thinking, do they really have money? And then when he told me where he worked, I went, oh, okay, well then, yeah. So I don't pay for leads. And I guess, and I think for me, it's more a principle. It's a principle thing. So I am not going to give somebody my hard-earned money because what do they qualify as a lead? I just think that when I have done it after the 2006 and I was paying all this money, I tell myself, if I'm going to try something new, I'll do it for 6 months. How much is it going to cost me for 6 months? And then what's my return on investment, my ROI? I'm really big on that. So in order to know for me if it was worth it, like how much does it cost me to list a house? You know, I tell myself it's $1,000 every time I go to list a house. It's probably not that much. I try to dwindle it down, but and then how much does it cost me to have a buyer? So I just believe as well that even if you just prospect 1 hour a day, you've heard the hour of power. And you look at it over time. If you think about winning by attrition, like even if you make 5 phone calls a day or you talk to 5 people a day, that's 25 a week. And then how many is that a year? I hands down believe that just being authentic and making those calls and being in front of people, whether that's being on a committee in a chamber or what have you, I don't know. I just don't pay for leads.
Well, and you feel like obviously the return of your time is better someplace else. I think if you didn't feel that way, again, you might have a different perspective, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something which I thought, which I know that I love, and that is when you decide to do something, you do it for 6 months. And I think sometimes we get caught up with, oh my gosh, this is going to cost me X, or wow, this, even hiring an assistant, this is going to cost me $40,000 a year. Well, not if you say I'm just doing it for 2 months, or not if you just say I'm doing it for 3 months. So, you know, there's benefits to kind of saying, I'm going to try it, see how it works, and then move on to something else if it doesn't.
Correct.
Sure.
Yes.
So the CRM piece.
Yes.
Yes, top producer, you mentioned it. We have done in our office, we've done like demo days with different CRMs, and it's so funny because every time we do one, the group always kind of comes back knowing that top producer does the most, but I feel like people leave top producer because it does so much and they say they're not using it all. So my questions for you are like, what are you actually using in top producer that works for you?
Okay. I can tell you what we don't use in top producer is the financial piece. We do that in QuickBooks. So here's what we do in top producer. So the biggest thing that I believe that we use top producer for is it's really my contact management. I look at it as my big address book. And so of course we have that person's contact information, email, phone number, address, and then I mentioned that we have hundreds of contact types in top producer. So you're probably wondering, okay, so then what do you track in top producer? So we track the source. So I always want to know, where is my dollars working, whether it's just listed, just sold. So like for instance, to track our sources, I have 2020 referral, 2020 KST marketing, 2020 sign call, 2020 out of town agent referral. Does that make sense? Or repeat? So We track the source. Also in top producer, we have closed contact type. So it might say closed 2019 buyer, closed 2006 seller. So we have all that, we track all that. I have all my local agents that I work with, out of town referral agents. If I've sold a listing, we adopt the buyer. So we have an adopted buyer contact type.
Kind of slipped that in earlier, so explain what that is.
So an adopted buyer is, so I just sold 123 Easy Street, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith moved in. Well, I go and I put Mr. and Mrs. Smith in my contact and top producer, and then I tag them as 2020 adopted buyer. So that way, when I do my quarterly mailings, they'll get my quarterly mailings, and adopted buyers will call you to list their houses. And it's usually the really nice price house. It's quite interesting. The other thing that we do with the adopted buyer, so fast forward to January, the third week of January, everyone who's closed with us the year before, they get a copy of their HUD statement, ALTA statement, settlement statement, whatever we call them nowadays. And so not only do I send it to our closed buyers and our closed sellers, but guess what? I also send the settlement statement to the adopted buyer. And then about 3 days after I believe they've received it, I follow up with a phone call, thanking them for making it such a great transaction. How's the house treating them? Is there anything that they need? So I do that even with the adopted buyers. So love adopted buyers.
Have you ever felt like you've gotten pushback?
Usually so I have a system in place that I call them a day after we close, 7 days after we close, and 30 days after we close. And then I call them in January. So that first phone call, it's usually, yep, okay. And it's very short and sweet. And then, you follow up again, and then they're a little bit more chatty. And then sometimes that's when you find out, oh, they still need the garage door code or whatever. But usually by January, when they're very, very receptive to me calling, and they're very appreciative of getting a copy of their settlement statement for ease to take to their accountant, in case if there are any deductions, because y'all, their agent probably didn't send it to them. So be the hero. So that's what we do.
Awesome.
Let's see. Also in top producer, we use it as our prospecting mecca. So if there's someone that I want to, like, we have A, B, C prospecting, so A's get a call every month, B's every other month, C's maybe twice a year, whatever. And then I also have a contact type that says seller weekly leads. So anybody that as I'm prospector, I'm coming into contact with, but they don't need a call tomorrow, I go and hurry up and tag them as seller weekly leads. So guess what? On Mondays, when I call, I pull up seller weekly leads as one of my parts of prospecting, and then I call those people and then figure out if I can get an appointment. The other thing that we track in top producer is happy home anniversaries. So we're doing that. So whether someone closed today, a year ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, I'll follow up with them, and top producer reminds me of that. And then we also, in each person's contact type, so you ask, aren't you glad? In each person's contact type, we tag their personality styles, whether they're a driver, an influencer, a supporter, or an analytical. So we do that too. So and then we also have launch plans. So so top producer, once we list a house, there's a plan that gets launched, and the same thing with closings. So we use it for a lot. We just don't use it for the financial piece of it.
Why are you tagging them with 2020 so-and-so? Like that normally it's just, adopted buyer. How are you using the year significance there?
Because I track every year. So for instance, it's just easier to track it that way. Otherwise, if I just put, for instance, adopted buyer, and I go into top producer and I click adopted buyer, then everybody would be in there. I mean, I could, but at the end of the year, we track exactly where all 103 of our transactions will have come from. So it's just easier. I think it's easier to do it in contact types. Maybe there's an easier way of doing it.
No, I just always think it's fascinating because a lot of these things we do, those are like little secret sauces that maybe we figured out makes it so easy for us that when you share that, someone goes, oh my gosh, aha, that would do it.
Yeah,
for sure. So do you wake up you mentioned the action plans. Do you wake up and are you looking at top producer to decide what you're going to do that day? As far as your phone calls and, are you using it in that way?
No, I probably could. I probably should, but there'll be certain contact types that I'll like, that seller weekly lead. And then the other thing that I also use Top Producer for is I time block every week. And right now it's Monday afternoons that I call every seller, whether they're an income, like a coming soon seller, a seller that's active, or a seller that's under contract, and I follow up with them on Monday afternoons. And so I tell them that in the listing presentation. So I'll pull up those contact types. So I do use Top Producer, but it doesn't tell me who to call and when. I just have to remember what to do. Actually.
Do you, when you said, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought there. You were saying I don't know. I'll remember it. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned, have you had a coach, or do you have a coach?
Oh yes. Okay. Yes.
And who are you following?
So Joanne Fosland, whom I met at WCR NAR, I met her in 1998 and started coaching with her. And she's been my coach almost that whole time. So she's been my coach over 20 years. Now I've left her, I've gone and I've tried other people. But for 7 years, up until this February, I had a coach with the Mike Ferry organization, which was very much sales training, script training. So I kept Joanne as a coach, and I kept the Mike Ferry coach. And people would ask, why do you have more than one coach? I'm like, when you want to be the best in your field, you have more than one coach. Olympians have more than one coach. They have mindset coaches, they have skill coaches, they have, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of always been my thought process. And so I just hired a new coach. I left Mike Ferry in February. And I just hired a new coach, and he's in Florida. So none of my coaches have ever been local. They've always been somewhere else in the country.
Okay. And I want you to mention Joanne, because I actually referred an agent to Joanne, a different agent. She's in Branson, and she's loving Joanne. So what do you get from Joanne? Because I think she's worth talking about.
Oh gosh. So when I hired Joanne, I was a single agent. So when I started the business in 97, I was a single agent until 2002. So as she was coaching me, she helped me understand personality styles, which is huge. I mean, you want to quickly add 20% to your bottom line, understand personality styles. She helped me to understand when I needed an assistant, and how we approached that this was brutal, but now I have my team do it about once a year. From the time you wake up until the time you go to bed, I want you to get out a calendar, and for 4 days straight, I want you to write down what you're doing, whether it's checking email, mailing letters, you're on the phone, whatever. And then she looked at that 4 days and helped me to decide which activities were working. Let me think. We're working on the business, not in the business. So that's when we helped to develop job descriptions. So she helps with that. But right now, I would share with you, she's my mindset coach. Yeah. She really, really helps me to look at things from a much, much bigger point of view. Because in this business, as we know, we can just get so laser focused on what we need to do. But sometimes having that different perspective is, oh yeah, that makes sense. She's unbelievable. She's amazing.
Nice. Very cool. So we've got 2 more questions. So one is, what is your best source of business?
My best source of business is repeat and referral.
Mm-hmm.
About 75 to 80%, depending on the year.
And where's the other percentages coming from?
So from 2014 to 2018, the other 25% was cold calling, whether that was just listed, just sold. The majority of them were expired, a few for sale by owner sprinkled in there, because I charge full commission. That's something else that they talk about at the office. So sometimes when you're calling for sale by owners, they're like, you charge what? But I usually don't tell them over the phone. I get in front of them, because here's the thing, if they see value, they'll pay for it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Cool. Do you, you mentioned, going back to the personality types, How do you sort that? You said you're tracking it. How are you using it?
Oh, so how do we use it? So like in, I just wrote this down. So in top producer, we have him, D, him, I, him, S, him, C. So we'll post whichever one he is in the contact type, and we'll do the same thing for her. It gets a little bit trickier if you have partners, then we have to figure out how we're going to do that. But how we use that is, that's an excellent question. So if you're meeting with a driver, they're very bottom line, they don't like fluff, they just want the highlights, ding, 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 ding. So everyone on the team has access to top producer. So if it's my admin calling and they're calling a driver, they know, don't ask about how his weekend was, because he really doesn't want to talk about that. They know to make the conversation short and sweet. If they're emailing, they know that that email needs to have bullet points and not big, long, drawn out. They also, I think, especially with drivers, the team will understand that if that person was short with them on the phone, not to take it personally. It had nothing to do with them. So it's really all around communication.
That's a great point, because that saves a lot of, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? What's going on, when you already know.
Yes,
Very cool.
yes, yes. So I teach that. I've taught that class before, and I've actually taught it to our region, our Remax region, like years ago. So if you ever want me to do that, I'd be happy to come and do that. So.
Nice. So before we wrap up with the last one, and if you have a question, if you want to put it in the chat, we can ask Kristi, or we can get an answer for you afterwards. Tell us about your team structure, for sure. So you're the lead.
Yep. So I'm the lead. I'm the listing agent, and then I have 2 full-time buyer specialists and 1 admin. We're currently looking for a part-time marketing person. I'm going to split that listing person into a couple different pieces, because that's such a heavy, the amount of listing appointments that I go on. So they need a little bit of a break. And then Joanne helped me to understand that my time is not best spent going and putting for sale signs in yards and putting lock boxes on the door, taking the key to the title company. So I found a gal that has an errand running business. And so Shelly comes in on Tuesdays and Fridays, and she goes and she'll meet appraisers, and she'll put out signs. When we used to have flyers, she put out flyers. She'll go pick up the little booties. I mean, she'll go get my groceries. She'll pick up my Target order. I mean, she does all that stuff that I don't want to do. So yeah, that's really our team structure.
And then you also outsource for social media.
Yes.
Staging, do you outsource for pictures?
Yes, I don't take my own pictures. Yeah.
Okay, no one on the team does that. Okay, cool.
No.
So our last question always is, I don't know, maybe McDonald's or what is your secret sauce? What is the secret to Kristi?
So, that was a really hard question when I knew you're going to ask me that. So I thought about it for a while, and I thought, I don't know. So I asked my team, which was very, very humbling. But before they answered me, if I had to say what my secret sauce is, I think it's that I'm versatile. So you have to be versatile. You have to be able to talk to people. So in time blocking, I'm super driven, but I'm also very selfish with my time and time blocking, getting things done, because I have this huge responsibility that sellers and buyers are expecting us to get their, to find a property or get their property sold. So here's what my team said, what my secret sauce is: delegation. That was good. Knowing my worth, meaning delegating, making my weekly seller calls. I've been doing that since 2009. So I've made a lot of calls every week since 2009. I really have always prided myself on the systems and processes that we have in place. Joanne helped me with that 100%. And I also believe in leading your team and not managing your team. So having the right person in the right seat on the bus is super, super important. So that's
cool. We've been studying a book, The Success Principles, and one of the things in it talks about like knowing what you want. And it's like, I don't care is not a good answer. Like you do care about things. And I think, there is a secret sauce that, and one of the great questions that I love is like, what would be missing if Kristi didn't exist? And there's your value point. So you just identified some really cool pieces of the value that you bring to the team that wouldn't be there if you weren't there. So that's a good secret sauce.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think that's it for today. Kind of keeps us to our time. I am so appreciative of your time and always your friendship, but you share so much, and it's clear to see why you
Thank you.
continue to grow.
Thank you. Very mutual. And thank you for this opportunity. And if anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to share my email address. I'd be happy to answer anything.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. Well, wishing you a best happy holidays. Thanks, Kristi.
Thanks. You as well.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.